What screams I have depression? Story 1. Self-sabotage and wallowing, chasing feelings of sadness in order to feel something, anything at all. I did that during high school because it felt familiar, and it gave me a sense of control, sabotaging my relationships and a few of my opportunities before realizing what damage those behaviors could do to me. A privilege I know not everyone has the ability to live out. And wallowing in self-pity made me believe that I could own my emotions and own myself, even in the darkness. But none of that was true, and I am so grateful to have grown emotionally, a little bit at least since then. Story 2. Talking to people, working on yourself, staying awake, taking care of your health, even if it's extremely important. You just no longer care anymore, or not even that. The ability to care or not care isn't even there. You're just vacant, and so as a consequence let everything slip by and watch it with bolder eyes. Story 3. For me it's a gradual process into not being into things I used to like. Nothing really screaming. It happens so slowly, it's like I'm more growing out of them than losing interest. But then it grows until I can't be bothered to watch TV or eat nice food, and then I know. This weirdly happens before any feelings of sadness have sunk in. It's more like indifference, and sleep is so good. Story 4. Small tasks like showering become monumental or even get skipped entirely. The house becomes messy, not eating enough or eating too much, sleeping all the time or not sleeping at all, dreading getting up in the morning even when you have stuff that you should be looking forward to. Story 5. I have had 2 big clinical depressions. My personal view on depressions is that you just literally don't feel anything. Your life just becomes one big emotionless void. It is beyond being sad or tired or angry. Everything just loses its meaning. If you are still able to cry, laugh, be nervous or stressed about things, to me you haven't hit the real depression yet, which is good, because it means recovery will be easier for you. The most difficult thing about getting out of a real clinical depression for me is starting to care about things again. I still have problems with that. Like, I care about my wife, my child, and my dog a lot. And I mean, a lot. But caring about other seemingly important things like friends, money, my job, the state of my car and house, maintenance, nah. I just can't get myself to care about those things anymore that much. It's like my soul decided to only care about my family and my dog. Things that really depend on me and whose lives I can make easier and more fun by being a better person. But other than that, everything can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. Story 6. Let me see. No makeup after 42 years of never leaving the house without it. Wearing same shorts and stained t-shirt 24/7 until cats try to bury you. Can't remember last time brushed your hair. For first time bed not made and sleep without sheets or blankets. Never answer the phone or door. And haven't been out shopping since 2019. Story 7. If for self-analysis, the lack of interest in anything, even to get done with the daily routine activities like getting up from your bed or taking showers. If the question is for someone else, a change in behavior indicating isolation, non-involvement, words which indicate negativity or pessimism, mood swings, and even eyes welling up in between conversation can be indications. The best one can do in that case is to provide a safe place for him, her to express, and to guide in the ways you can without being forceful and pushy, and not undermining and negating the emotions the person is going through. Story 8. Staying up until 1 a.m. thinking about the tests that I need to take to get to med school entry requirements, and then cry my life, but not deciding to stop myself by choosing dentistry or law, just because I love medicine since I was 15, and I have cancer patients in my family, which led me to promise myself that I'll be an oncologist one day. Story 9, putting off making calls. It could be about a billing problem or making a DR appointment, but more often it's calling a friend that I've been really wanting to connect with or who I'd told I was going to call, like to finalize plans. Nope, I'm paralyzed. Then I feel even more depressed. I know I've let them down. I tell myself I'm a shitty friend, and that they probably think I'm an asshole for not following through, especially if I've done this before when I was paralyzed. They eventually text or call me. I leave them unread or let them go to voicemail. They might leave me 2 or 3 messages. When my clouds lift and I'm back to my happy self, I call everyone I ghosted and make up some crisis story that explains why I was incommunicado. I'm lucky I have good friends who've known me a long time. Story 10. Only brushing your teeth when you have work that day, thus neglecting it during your days off. Self-neglect in general, like say not going to the doctor and or dentist for several years, addictions of any kind, eating too much junk food, daily suicidal thoughts, declining most, if not all invitations for hanging out with family and friends, being chronically online, allowing your hair to become free-form dreads, 'cause combing it after washing is too much effort, And going to the barber feels like a pain in the ass to you now, always being physically and mentally exhausted, procrastinating every damn thing including doing laundry and taxes, going an entire day without eating or drinking water sometimes despite having these things available, not exercising, working out, just generally letting your whole world crumble to shit, and constantly saying you don't care anymore, 'cause fuck everything and everyone at this point, basically just letting yourself rotty from the inside out. And maybe even watching others do the same and not trying to help them cause that's also too much effort. I wish was never born, and I think of suicide several times a day. Story 11. Letting yourself drift into self-destruct. Abandon self-care. Living in trash because it doesn't even bother you anymore to live in misery. You just accept your life is shit and you don't have the strength to turn it around because you think it just won't get better. Just worse. Story 12. I spent a month without leaving my apartment. Showered maybe every third day, ordered food in every day, played video games until I could keep my eyes open anymore, slept until sunlight woke me up, lost track of the days until I had to go back to work after the holiday. Story 13. What kind of doctor should you see if you want help with depression? Then can you just call that type of doctor and make an apt? Or would I need to find a regular doctor and give them my sob story and hope for a referral? Instead of finding out how to do this, I just get worse and worse. I need help. Story 14. I know this is not the right comment on this, but I have not been depressed for the last 6 months because of how I eat. I have been depressed more or less for 30 years. I want to spread the word because this has saved me, but I keep getting censored, and I understand that most people don't want to hear this. But I can't stop thinking that I wish I knew this sooner. And I am so grateful I found out that if I can help just one person to avoid crippling depression, it would mean everything for someone. Sorry guys, but I can't help it. Please don't hate me. I have the best intentions here. And I am prepared to take, it is worth it. I can inspire someone who can experience what I did. I bet I can't even mention what kind of stuff I eat, or I will be censored. Story 15. Sitting down in the shower, struggling to shower. The inability to shower is commonly overlooked and seen as unhygienic instead of a symptom of depression. As well, people who are depressed tend to sit in the shower, finding themselves seeking that comfort and warmth they are lacking, but receiving from the shower as they sit and let the water fall. Story 16. Everything I'm reading here has been me my entire life more often than not. I'm generally a personable guy. I hold a job. I have a long-time girlfriend. I'm told I'm fun to hang with and talk to. For all intents and purposes to the world, I'm a completely normal person. But everything is such a chore I can barely do it. Left to my own devices, I will try to do things I somehow know that I'm supposed to like somehow I'm aware that I should like it, or I have liked it at times, but I can never find any joy in it or enjoy it. I find myself just sitting a lot, not really doing anything, just existing in a spot. Started younger than I can even remember. I remember feeling like playing video games with my brothers was something I did for them, not something I really thought was fun. I did it because I knew they liked to do it. Became a heroin addict, got clean, became an alcoholic for longer, got sober. Nothing's changed. It's the same lack of feeling for most of life that it's ever been. People think I'm a normal, happy person, and I guess I'm really good at being that for people. It's just not real. I do feel love. I love my girlfriend. She's kept me alive. I love my family. I love talking to her and them, and being with them. That's what keeps me going, and not just sleeping 24/7 or worse. I just can't help but wonder if I'll ever be happy with myself, unto myself, and not only with their help. Story 17. Having almost nothing to look forward to, ever. When I was deep in it, I had a weekly 30 minutes meeting with a club I helped run. It was the only thing I slightly looked forward to. Then as soon as everyone left, nothing for another week. Mostly just staying alive for family. Outside of Zoom therapy, it was literally the only conversation I had for the entire week that was more than, "Hey, how are you?" Good. It would just be me and my thoughts until 7 days later I had another 30 minutes. I think having something to look forward to is one of the best things you can do, but it can be very hard in times like that. Story 18. This is the best Reddit post of all time. Real people with real issues looking for support. A lot of us are going through this. And for me, when I read so many comments about not being happy with anything and sleeping a lot, has made me realize I have this affliction. You, and I mean we, are not alone. Let's each of us do our best to solve our issue. We live in a big, beautiful, and complicated world. But let's try our best to solve our own problems, as best we can. I would rather wake up in the morning and be ready for a new day than pull the covers over my head. Story 19. It's very common but often ignored if someone behaves overly happy without even having any reason to, and not happy in normal way, but like you feel unsettled by their happiness, That much happy smile, overly active, overly excited, and deep inside they are having thoughts of runaway, suicide, sleep all day, ED, and gaming, cause that way they ignored their sufferings, and being overly happy mean they are afraid to show their sufferings to anyone. I know because I was the one. So yeah. Story 20. It took me years to recognize it as an indicator I was in the sneaky slip into a depressive cycle. But I get odd aches that aren't aches, or not something I can define as definitely pain, just wrongness in my stomach and joints. On the flip side, in the deepest points of my depression, actual pain doesn't feel like pain. It's a sensation, yes, but it doesn't do the eek, bad, stop, negative reaction. It's suddenly a surprising sensation that is not positive or negative, but can be felt, and is so unique and different in the moment the make it stop need isn't there with it, which is part of the frightening aspects of depression. Story 21. I could not shower to save my life for some reason back then. I dreaded it so horribly. I dreaded going to school with dirty hair as well. Just felt so badly for people who might be forced to look at the greasy grotesquerie that was my face. Nowadays, I sometimes wonder how different my, especially high school younger years, might have been. All the freaking wincing, bitter self-disgust and hopelessness, if someone would have told me about freaking dry shampoo. Story 22. Can't get out of bed. I don't mean won't, I mean can't. This was the trigger for me, and led to a life-changing and lifetime prescription for antidepressants. Obviously, the trigger itself didn't come from me, as I just couldn't. But my wife insisted I go to the GP. Holy fucking shit. I had no clue how deep in the hole I was. I didn't have suicidal ideation, but I had got to the point where I completely understood why someone would take that path. The meds work, folks. Not perfectly, and not all the time, but they fucking work. Story 23. IDK, how to describe it. It's like that point where life is meaningless, but dying is out of the question. Also, now looking back, it's when I wanted to have a deep conversation with someone I loved and just end up giving super dry responses, not engaging in the conversation I started. To all you depressed lads out there, please ask for help. Depression for me lasted so long because I would be with people and just hope one of them would notice I wasn't doing good, but depression is harder to spot than that. Please talk to someone. Anyone. Story 24. Being too sad to cry. You're just tired almost. It's like tired but burning. Also, things you used to do as an outlet become a chore. It's been really hard to do art since my cat almost died in an accident back in January. He's doing better now, but he had to have his tail partially amputated, and I'm not doing better. I feel like a failure and a bad parent. Even though I'm not the one who caused his tail to get hurt, it was an accident my dad caused. He just wasn't watching the door to make sure my cat's tail wasn't in the way when he closed it. My cat seems mostly okay now, but I keep feeling super guilty because sometimes he still seems to be in a little pain. I think he has nerve damage now. My depression wasn't great before January. I can't recall the last time I could bathe, sleep, or do anything on a regular schedule. But since January, I've lost a lot of interest in art and eating. I probably normally eat a whole meal once a day. I'm losing weight. My elastic-banded pants all keep slipping off. Story 25. I can't play video games anymore because it feels like a chore. I've abandoned all my friends and some people just stopped talking to me. I need help, but don't have the motivation to get any help. Last year, I had a lot of suicidal thoughts, but before anyone goes and reports my comment, I just have to say that I already called the hotline, and I'm not thinking of doing it anymore. Story 26. You lose motivation to do anything. You lose interest in things that you normally love. Literally every aspect of life begins to seem like a hassle. It's of course not a consistent condition among those who have it. A lot of people here have talked about sleep feeling like the only escape. I always feel tired and have the urge to get into my bed and stay there, but my dreams rarely leave me feeling any way other than vaguely malcontented, and I never wake up refreshed. Even with the pull that sleep has on me, it does nothing to comfort me like it seems to do for some other people who are depressed. I'm doing far better than I used to. Zoloft, ketamine, and Adderall, the last one especially, have contributed a lot to my chugging along. These days, though, it still feels like happiness and contentment, whatever either of those even mean, remain impossible to actually achieve. That is what I would call the most damning part of depression, and possibly its biggest indicator, when you feel nothing, no matter how monumental or minor your achievements are. Story 27 below is context, TLDR, at the bottom. My older brother. He was in the military like me, but since he was 16, he had a rough time of it and life in general, but I didn't know just how bad until people came and spoke about him at his funeral. They would talk about how he stood up for everyone under his command and how he'd always get chewed out for putting his soldiers first. How he never complained and took every setback on the chin. He did 10 years, 5 as a ranger, and was out for about 1 year. I always looked up to him. He wore the loudest, most obnoxious Hawaiian shirts you ever did see, and just about every flavor of pit vipers there existed. He came home from active duty, and all he did was run for hours in the morning and work out at the gym for hours in the evening. He turned into a small house. His dress and his mannerisms were the opposite of who he was. He was so reserved and quiet. Repeatedly, he'd sit in his chair motionless, staring at the wall until his phone notifications would ring. He had so many friends who cared about him. It wasn't until my father came home one day to a note on the garage that we knew something was wrong. It was short and sweet, almost like a chore that needed to be done. I didn't want to make a mess. I moved the cars out back. I'm inside the garage in mine. Call the police. Love you all. He was 27. He always wore a smile and was a much better person than me. TLDR. Dressing very colorfully and being very quiet. Excessive working out and consistently being alone. Nothing to help you face reality like vices or guilty pleasures. The 1,000-yard stare. Suicide jokes to no visible audience, or when they think they are alone. Story 28. Boredom. There's so much to do in life. How is it possible to be bored? Boredom is my cue that something is off, and I'm heading for a depressive episode. It's good now that I've noticed the pattern. I can get a head start on self-care and self-love. Story 29. The hours where you have to be awake become the worst parts of the day. Just one more day without a shower. You no longer fear death. You can only hope it comes sooner than expected. But you can't do it yourself. Then everyone will know you were depressed. Just remember, depression can show itself in many ways. Please, please always get help. Never let that horrible disorder win you over. You are worth it. Small steps.